This One's Wife. Megnancy Nonsense. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The supposed pregnancies of this one's wife have repeatedly come under scrutiny. This has resulted in two theories stemming from that. The first, she has never been pregnant and never given birth to children. The children that are put forward in photos and videos aren't hers. The second, and more likely, theory is she was never pregnant. The children arose from a surrogate, and the children do exist. There are some that believe that she was pregnant, did give birth, and the children exist. But it is fair to say that there are so many discrepancies in relation to her pregnancies that it isn't a surprise that people end up querying what has actually gone on. The list of inconsistencies grows all the more, and focusing specifically on the pregnancies, one notable aspect which is missing is there is a paucity of detail from this one's wife in relation to the circumstances of her pregnancies. As I've explained before, this one's wife's favourite subject is herself. She wants to tell you about so many things associated with her world in order to make it all about her, because essentially the default setting for her is that she's the most important person in the world. You must listen to her, you must praise her, you must adore her. This leads her to talking nonsense. Because she's essentially a boring, bland and beige individual, her narcissism needs to try and make her sound interesting. So that is why we have had clearly bullshit tales about dining in a Korean spa where people were naked and eating noodles. I was the one that caused Procter & Gamble to change their minds about an advertisement, when in actual fact we know that it was a class that did it. I had an anecdote about clambering out of the back of a car when actually she's seen that in an advertisement involving Catherine Zeta-Jones, and so on and so forth. All of this is done by character trait acquisition, whereby her narcissism takes the experiences of other people and passes them off as her own in order to make her seem more interesting. And this is because many of the experiences that she has engaged in are actually rather dull, or ones that she won't share because they would bring about a threat to control. For instance, if she were to talk about her activities in respect of Soho House or the allegations about her being a yacht girl, that would be entirely problematic for her. So her narcissism will not allow her to speak about them. It needs to find something else to talk about, and therefore pinches the experiences of other people to use for her. One other aspect of this is in relation to the pregnancies. As I mentioned, were it the case that she was an individual who was pregnant, we wouldn't have heard the end of it. She would have been doing the Demi Moore, showing off the photographs while she was pregnant of her bare belly, etc. She would have given us far more detail about all of the occurrences and what has actually happened between her and Harry and the pregnancy. She'd have talked about morning sickness. She'd have talked about feeling baby moving. We probably would be, even though she didn't utilize social media at the time, we'd have probably have had shared now videos of Archie or Lilibet moving inside of her, which is something which all parents like to share to demonstrate their as yet unborn child is alive and kicking, literally within the womb. But none of that has come forward. And as I've explained to you on many times, one way of outing the narcissist is give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves. This applies to lesser and mid-range narcissists because their narcissism operates not only in the moment, but only in the moment. It doesn't consider the long term. It doesn't consider what has gone before or what will happen in the future. It doesn't aim for consistency. The greater narcissists and the ultra do. That's why it's harder to spot those types of narcissists, because they maintain a consistency with regard to the narratives that are shared, that they continue to maintain a particular story, even if it's not true, but they're consistent about it because their more evolved narcissism shapes it in that manner. But when it comes to the lesser and mid-range narcissists, their narcissism doesn't operate that way. All it cares about is the result in the moment, and that means you will catch them out in lies, that the stories will change, that details will be added that weren't there before, that memories will be referred to which you've never heard of, and often what's explained simply doesn't make sense. It doesn't pass the sniff test, by way of example. And we've got another instance of this from this one's wife relating to what many call her Megnancy. The New York Post with Alexandra Belusky reports, this one's wife put her best foot forward when she was pregnant. So much so that the Duchess of Sussex was always dressed to the nines from head to toe while pregnant with Archie in 2019. A friend just said to me the other day, they were like, I just saw this picture I'd forgotten about when you were so pregnant with Archie, this one's wife said on Tuesday's episode of her Confessions of a Female Founder podcast. At the time, the suit's alum was a working royal and made public appearances all the way up to giving birth to her first child with Prince Harry. While pregnant with Archie and their daughter Lilibet, now 3, she gained 65 pounds. Now, even to someone such as me who's not had involvement in being a father or pregnancies and such like, that sounds like a hell of a lot of weight to put on. And I thought to myself, what is the average weight that a woman might put on? And the internet tells me, during pregnancy, a woman typically gains between 25 and 35 pounds, 11.5 to 16 kilograms. This weight gain varies depending on factors like pre-pregnancy weight and whether she is carrying multiples. Well, we know, for instance, that this one's wife was not carrying multiples because just Archie appeared and then Lilibet appeared. And according to this one's wife was carrying nearly double the average weight. So she's not just sort of 40, 45 pounds, but said 65, which does seem rather excessive when you hear it, and would mean that given the fact that she's fairly slender to begin with, and she's got thinner as she's got older, but it would have meant that she would have been carrying a right old bump on her, if that was correct. Because when you look at some of the photographs of when she was pregnant, which have been popping up on your screen, you'll see that the weight isn't in her legs. Her face looks a little bit larger, it must be admitted. It doesn't appear that she's carrying it on her boobs, or her bottom, or on her legs. Therefore, where is this weight? In the bump. But the bump isn't that big. And accordingly, on the physical evidence of what you see, that doesn't look like 65 pounds. And furthermore, it is way beyond the average weight gain. And indeed, if one turns to the comments in the New York Post article, somebody writes, I asked AI how much weight a 5'5" woman gains during pregnancy and got this answer. A 5'5" woman should generally aim to gain between 25 to 35 pounds during pregnancy if she starts at a healthy weight. Sunshine writes 65 pounds on someone her height would have looked extremely rotund. Only her face and belly looked bigger during the pregnancies, in inverted commas. I'm 5'8" and went from 120 pounds to 150 pounds during my pregnancy, and I looked like a completely different person because of the additional 30 pounds. I don't think she knows how much surface area 65 pounds would have added to her body, which makes it practically impossible to believe. Doesn't appear that those individuals are convinced of the legitimacy of this story. One other person writes, my baby was 10 pounds in weight and I swelled up pretty bad the last month of my pregnancy, but even I didn't gain that much weight, and this one's wife didn't either. Moon bumps don't weigh that much. Crusty old man, talk about fairy tales. Her weight and size changed daily depending which moon bump was available at Hollywood props department for that particular day. HL, her lies always start with, a friend sent me. She thinks the more stories she tells about pregnancy, the more people are going to believe that she was pregnant. Well, the fact is that when it comes to this one's wife, as a mid-range narcissist, all you need to do is give her enough rope and she'll tell on herself, because she will either, as we've seen in many instances before, come out with something which is inconsistent to what she stated previously, say something which is completely wrong, say something which is evidently embellished, or say something that patently doesn't make sense. Her need to convince people that she was pregnant to nullify threats to control posed by people who don't believe that she was doesn't cause her to maintain a silence, but instead she can't help herself but say things such as this, which don't bear any credibility. She also doesn't learn from the fact that she ought to realise that there are a host of individuals who scrutinise everything that she says and everything that she does, because they've now formed the view that she's a rampant liar. Other people might get a pass. Other people, it might not even be scrutinised, that you would just let it flow over your head. And with others, you might think, sounds a bit odd, but hey, I like the individual and, maybe they've got it mistaken. But with her, because of her lack of popularity and reputation for being a liar, the things that she does and the things that she says automatically attract scrutiny, and so it's the case here. And yet again, something that she says in relation to the pregnancy is demonstrably inaccurate, which only adds to the suggestion that she wasn't pregnant, and in fact, she experienced Megnancies. What do you think, valuable viewers, about this latest revelation about weight gain and the pregnancies? Does it further cement your view in relation to the Megnancies, or do you think it's simply an error on her part and an honest one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.